again with Diane's BlueHeartsAndButterflies.com, and I am going to show another watercolory look background. This one is called Smooshing technique to do this card, and this card I did case from Vicky, I think it's pronounced Boucher, and I saw the card on Pinterest and it really did speak to me. You Are My Sunshine is a song that I sang to my kids all the growing up. Nowadays, can't sing it to them because they tell me to stop. But this is using the Ridiculously Awesome stamp set. It has some very large sentiment stamps in it that really kind of give a good pop on a card. The kind of black leaf things, I did actually cut those using the sunshine dies that go with the Celebrate Sunshine bundle, and there are two different ones, and I just cut those out to use on the back of this card. And then for the centers, I did dig out an old retired set that I had, the Daisy Delight, to stamp those, but you could always just use a black Stampin' Right marker and kind of dot those, or you could even punch out a piece of black cardstock and put in the center of this. I did also use some black and white twine that I had on hand, but the Playful Pets suite has a red and white, or black and white twine that is wrapped together that I thought would look much better, and it's probably what she actually used. And I did find some that I had, and I'm going to use that in the card we make today. So let me get the pieces out so we can kind of go over what you'll need. You will need the that one goes in a different thing. The small scrap piece of black, basic black cardstock, so that it's big enough to fit the sentiment on. A couple of scraps of the white cardstock so that you can punch the daisies. This is using the medium daisy punch and the daisy punch that you will punch those daisies. You'll need 2 of the larger daisies and 4 of the medium daisies for this card. You will also need a piece of the white cardstock. This one is 4 inches by 5 1/4, and then I have a black cardstock, and this is the one that's going to go behind here and no one's ever going to see it. So if when you're cutting your pieces out you want to cut your leaves that you're going to put on the front of the card, you could cut those out of here because you're going to be covering that up with this. And that's what I had done for some of the ones in my class. But this piece is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Then you have a the card base, which is 8 1/2 by 5 1/2. Score this in the landscape at 4 1/4. And then I also cut another piece of the basic white cardstock that is 4 inches by 5 1/4. Now on mine I do happen to have some shimmery white cardstock left, and I really wanted that to be on the front, so that's what I actually cut for the front, and then this one was for the inside for a sentiment and any kind of images. But this is the piece that we will actually do the smooshing technique on. So let me move these other pieces out of the way. And then of course you'll need that black and white twine for this card. So you'll need a piece of window sheet. I actually had some transparency paper left over, and so I used that for my class, and I just let everybody take theirs home so that they could repeat this background at home. The window sheet is actually a lot thicker and sturdier and would stand up better. This one, in order to use it, you're really going to have to leave it laying on the table and then apply the paper down to it. You may want to do that even with the window sheet so that it doesn't run everywhere, but this one I had to do. Now there's a few very different ways to be able to do this. There's just so many different people out there that had so many wonderful ideas of how to do this technique. One of them did mention that if you wanted to use the blends to color the front of the or the piece of window sheet, of course starting with the lighter color and then moving up to the darker color, blends are alcohol-based markers, and in order to get them to blend well, you would need to actually spritz them with alcohol. I have two different spritzers. One I marked with A that has alcohol in it, and one that is marked with W that has the water, so that I can use them with the different mediums to do different techniques. I have not tried it that way, although I'm sure that it would work. Some people take and apply the ink pad directly to here, or you could use your Stampin' Spots to do that. And then after you apply that, you would want to use a Stampin' Sponge and get the ink kind of mushed around. The one that I did show during the class, and it's the one that kind of works for me, is the re-inkers, well, ink refills, we call them re-inkers, kind of. And then I just kind of used that and mushed. There was mush and swoosh in our class, and so I just kind of added some ink different places, and I tried to make it so that there weren't so many of the blotches, which are darker areas that have more pattern in them, and I wanted it to be kind of more subtle. And then I take the Stampin' Mist with the water, because this is the dye-based ink that is water soluble, and I just spritzed water on there to kind of have the ink blend together, and then you just lay the cardstock down onto this piece, and you can actually pick it up, and if there's a piece that didn't get it and there's somewhere else you want to add some ink, you can just kind of put it back down. You could reapply some more ink, but you kind of get this smooshed watercolory background. You'll want to make sure that you have a wet wipe handy to wipe your window sheet with. Be able to get that cleaned off. And you'll want to set this aside to let it dry, or you can use the heat tool and be able to apply heat to it. You want to make sure that you do it from the top and from the bottom to try to cut down on some of the curling. Now I did already do a piece and let it dry, and it kind of did curl up a little bit, but you can kind of manipulate that by running your fingers over it and getting it kind of flattened out a little bit. And so that is this piece right here. And for the sake of the video, I'm not going to do the white embossing. I've already done that, but we are going to need to cut that piece out. And let me get these other parts out here. And I did already cut those leaves to use on here. So this piece is this right here, and then you just use your snips and cut that out. You don't have to have a die or anything, and you don't want to get too close, but you want to have a little bit maybe of a border a little bit, and you don't want to have to go, you know, right up against every single piece. Just kind of create a little border as you want it. This is the only piece that I actually ended up popping up on the card. I had thought about popping up the flowers, but I didn't want them to be too bulky in the card since I was going to mail it. And so it's the trick to fussy cutting, is one term that people use, is that you hold your scissors stationary and you actually move the paper, and that gives you a little more control on how you're cutting and where you're cutting. And it just kind of gives it a neat, different look instead of a label or die cut. It can be more customized to the sentiment stamp that you're using. And there it is. So we have that piece done. And then we're going to just assemble everything together. Oh, I forgot. The daisies. I've already cut these out. One thing that you will need to do before you assemble these together is using the sponge with the bumblebee ink is what I used for this, and this one is bumblebee cardstock. I just kind of went over the centers to give that kind of a yellowy look in the center. And then I'm going to go ahead and use more of a solid background on that center and stamp those centers more solidly. And that one needs a little bit more ink. Kind of hard to see when I can't get over my head over there. Pull this one over a little bit closer so I can see. I may want to do a few of these. And I can put some, decide which ones to go in the foreground and which ones to go in the background. And again with these, like with the, if you watched my dragonfly card, I just took the petals between my thumb and the bone folder, and I just kind of broke down the fibers a little bit in the cardstock to give them a little bit of movement. And I just did that with each one of these petals. Do that real quick here. And then I used glue dots to put the two flowers together. So it's two of the daisies go together. You kind of offset the petals so that they look like a fuller flower. And So in between the flowers I put glue dots, and then I put a glue dot on the back to adhere them to the front of the card. So right now, let me use this one as the front. So you put these together by offsetting the petals, and it creates more of a fuller flower. And do this one. I apologize, forgot to put my phone on silent. The larger daisy, I'm going to use 2 glue dots. So there are those. Now we can start assembling the card. And you can use whichever glue that you like. Some people like the white Tombow glue, the multi-purpose glue, and some people like the different runners. I really like the Seal Plus. It tears nicer and rolls nicer and doesn't tend to get rolled up into itself. Now this one has a very tiny small border around it. You'll put those together. And then this one's the one that goes on the inside. If you want to stamp something on it before you put it on, I would do that. I'm going to leave this one blank so that I could kind of give it a different message or write something in there. This goes on the inside. Oh, before I put it in there, let me go ahead and fold up the card base. And burnish that fold. And we'll put this on the inside of the card. You have to be careful with the Seal Plus because it is more of a permanent adhesive and it's not as forgiving. And this piece, oh, before I finish that, this is when you adhere the ribbon or the twine. So what I did was I took it and I wrapped it around a few times. I think that's too much. And then I just tied it in a bow. I'll stick that to there since I have adhesive on that. Alright, I am going to go ahead and just tie a knot. To hold that. And then I will tie the bow. However big or small you want. Since I'm tying this upside down, it didn't tie the way I wanted it, but okay. And then finish adding my adhesive on the back side. Get that rolling again. And then gotta figure out where you want that. And again, it's going to be a very small border because that black kind of adds there. Didn't like that bow. Okay, that one has to do. And then I'm going to take the leaves, or however you want to call them. And this, I did use the Tombow multi-purpose glue. Just added a little bit to the back in a few spots. And you can use as many or as few of these as you want. Nope. And this one is what goes behind the large. And kind of put this wherever you want it. Want that kind of going through or above or below, or you might even want to put your bow over here in the middle more. Then I think I'm just going to use the two over here. And put that there. This one's going to go kind of up here. I think this one I'm going to do down here. And then, like I said, this is the one that I decided to add dimensionals and pop it up. And gives the great illusion that you actually watercolored this background. And this I just kind of add up here. To the top of the card. And then you have a really pretty kind of watercolor wash background without having to do a wash. If you'd like, you could go ahead and add some of that Wink of Stella glitter marker to here. Give kind of some glimmer to the center, or you could use gems in there to get that look. You could even add rhinestones if you wanted to and have a different look. I appreciate you checking out my video and on my blog at dianesblueheartsandbutterflies.com. The measurements for all these all of my projects are over there, and links to the videos on my YouTube channel. So I hope that you'll go over and check it out. If you like some of these products and would like to have them for your own, you could go to shop from my website, my blog, to go to the website and order products there, and I would appreciate that. And I hope that you enjoyed this, and thank you for sharing your time with me.